Jake never believed in aliens. Working nights at the radio tower in the middle of nowhere, he'd heard all sorts of weird sounds coming through the equipment. Most of the time, it was just interference from passing planes or maybe some truckers. Radio bleeding through. But this Tuesday night was different. He was halfway through his usual midnight coffee when something strange came through the speakers. It wasn't static. It wasn't random noise. It sounded almost like ... music, but not any music he'd ever heard before. The pattern kept repeating every few minutes, getting stronger and weaker, like something was moving around out there. Jake had been doing this job for 3 years. He knew every sound that radio waves could make in this desert. This wasn't normal. His curiosity got the better of him, and he decided to track where the signal was coming from. Using the equipment, he figured out it was somewhere about 2 miles southwest of his station, against his better judgment. Jake grabbed his flashlight and headed out into the cold desert night. The October air bit at his face as he walked across the rocky ground. He'd done plenty of night walks before, but something felt different this time. The signal kept getting stronger on his handheld radio as he got closer to wherever it was coming. After about 30 minutes of walking, Jake saw something that made him stop dead in his tracks. There was a crater in the ground that definitely wasn't there last week, was maybe 15 feet wide and not too deep, like something had crashed but not too hard. The sand around it was all disturbed and there were strange scorch marks on the rocks. But that wasn't the weird part. The weird part was what was sitting next to the crater. It looked like a car, but not any car Jake had ever seen. It was completely silver and shaped like a smooth oval. There were no wheels, no doors that he could see, and it was definitely damaged. One side was cracked open, and there were pieces of what looked like metal scattered around it. Jake's heart was beating so fast he could hear it in his ears. His first thought was that maybe it was some kind of military thing that had crashed. But then he saw her. She was sitting with her back against a rock about 10 feet away from the strange vehicle. At first glance, she looked human, but as Jake got closer, he could see she definitely wasn't. Her skin had a slight blue tint to it, and it seemed to glow very faintly in the moonlight. She was small, maybe 5 feet tall, and wearing what looked like a silver suit that matched the crashed vehicle. But what really caught Jake's attention were her eyes. They were larger than human eyes and seemed to shine with their own light. When she looked up at him, he could see intelligence there. More than that, he could see she was scared but also relieved. Jake stood there for a moment, not knowing what to do. Every movie he'd ever seen told him he should run away or call the police or the military or somebody. But something about the way she was looking at him made him stay put. She didn't seem dangerous. If anything, she looked like she needed help. The being slowly reached for something on her chest. Jake tensed up, thinking it might be a weapon. But instead, she pressed what looked like a small device. Suddenly, he could hear her voice, speaking perfect English, though it sounded a bit mechanical. "Please don't be afraid," she said, her voice soft and gentle. "I know this must be very strange for you. I'm not here to hurt anyone. My ship broke down, and I've been sitting here for 2 days hoping someone would find me." Jake blinked hard, wondering if he was dreaming. But the cold desert air and the sound of her voice felt real enough. He took a step closer, still keeping his distance, but close enough to get a better look at her. You're really not from here, are you?" Jake asked, feeling stupid as soon as the words left his mouth. The being made a sound that could have been laughter. "No, I'm not from Earth. My name is Zara. I was supposed to be observing your planet from a safe distance, but something went wrong with my ship's systems. I crash-landed here 3 nights ago." Jake looked at the damaged ship and then back at Zara. She didn't look like the scary aliens from movies. She looked tired and maybe a little lonely. Her strange eyes kept looking at him hopefully, like she was waiting for him to make a decision about whether to help her or run away. "Are there more of you coming to look for you?" Jake asked. Zara shook her head. "No, this was supposed to be a quick solo mission. My people don't even know I'm in trouble yet. I was trying to fix the communication system to call for help, but I don't have the right tools." Jake found himself walking closer. Everything in his logical mind was telling him to leave, to call someone, to get as far away as possible. Looking at Zara sitting there alone in the desert, He couldn't bring himself to abandon her. She reminded him of a lost traveler who just needed someone to point them in the right direction. "Look," Jake said, surprising himself with his decision. "I don't know anything about spaceships or aliens or whatever this is, but I know about electronics and fixing things. Maybe I can help." The way Zara's face lit up made Jake realize he'd made the right choice. For the first time since he'd found her, she smiled, and it was the most genuine expression of happiness he'd ever seen. It was like she'd been waiting her whole life for someone to offer to help her. "You would do that for me?" she asked, and Jake could hear real emotion in her voice, despite the mechanical translation. "Even though I'm not from your world?" Jake sat down on a nearby rock, keeping some distance but showing he wasn't planning to run away. "I don't see why that should matter. You seem like a decent person. ... being ... whatever. And everyone deserves help when they're stuck." Ada's smile got even brighter. And Jake realized that this strange encounter in the desert might just change everything he thought he knew about the universe. Jake couldn't sleep the next day. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Zara sitting by that crashed ship in the desert. By the time evening came around, he'd made up his mind. He was going back to help her. He packed a bag with some basic tools. From the radio station, a thermos of coffee, and a couple of sandwiches. Jake had no idea if aliens ate human food, but it seemed rude not to offer. The walk back to the crash site felt different this time. Yesterday he'd been scared and confused. Tonight, he was nervous but determined. Zara was exactly where he'd left her. But now, she had parts of her ship spread out around her like she was working on repairs. When she saw him coming, her face lit up in a way that made Jake feel good about his decision. "You came back," she said through her translation device. "I wasn't sure you would." "I said I'd help," Jake replied, setting down his bag. "I always keep my word," he handed her one of the sandwiches. Zara looked at it curiously, turning it over in her hands like she was studying it. "What is this?" she asked. "Food, bread, meat, cheese, basic human stuff?" Jake took a bite of his own sandwich to show her it was safe. Zara carefully took a small bite and her eyes went wide. She chewed slowly, like she was tasting something incredible. "This is amazing," she said. "On my world, we get all our nutrition from these tasteless blocks. I never knew food could actually be enjoyable." Jake laughed. "Wait until you try chocolate." Over the next few hours, Jake learned more about Zara's ship than he ever thought possible. The technology was way beyond anything he'd ever seen. But the basic principles weren't that different from the electronics he worked with every day. It was like comparing a smartphone to an old radio, but they both used similar concepts. "Your people are really clever," Zara said as Jake figured out how to reconnect some damaged wiring. "On my world, only certain individuals are allowed to work with technology. Everyone else just uses what they're given." That sounds kind of limiting," Jake said, carefully joining two alien wires together. "It is," Zara replied, and there was something sad in her voice. "I wasn't supposed to be curious about how things work, but I couldn't help myself. It's actually why I'm here." Jake looked up from his work. "What do you mean?" Zara was quiet for a moment, like she was deciding whether to tell him something personal. "I kept asking too many questions back home, about how our ships work, about other worlds, about why we do things the way we do. My supervisor said I was being disruptive. This mission was supposed to be a punishment, you know? Send the problem. Child to watch some primitive planet from far away. Primitive?" Jake raised an eyebrow. "Sorry, that's just what they call worlds that haven't figured out space travel yet. I don't think Earth is primitive at all. Your people have something we don't have." "What's that?" "You're allowed to be curious. You can ask questions without getting in trouble. You can choose what you want to do with your life." Zara picked up a small tool and examined it. "I've been watching human broadcasts for weeks, and I'm amazed by how different each person is. On my world, everyone in the same job category acts exactly the same way." Jake had never thought about freedom that way before. To him, being able to choose his career and ask questions was just normal. But hearing Zara talk about it made him realize how lucky he was. "Is that why you don't seem in a hurry to fix your ship?" Jake asked. Zara smiled, but it was a guilty smile. "You noticed that?" "Yes. I suppose I am taking my time." This is the first adventure I've ever had. The first time I've been able to explore and learn without someone telling me to stop. I know I should want to go home, but honestly, I'm having more fun here than I've ever had in my life." They worked together in comfortable silence for a while. Jake was surprised by how easy it was to talk to Zara, despite being from another world. She was curious about everything, just like he was. She asked him about his job, about human relationships, about why people kept pets, about music, about art. Questions that made Jake think about his own world in new ways. "Can I ask you something?" Zara said as they took a break.
"Sure."
"Why did you decide to help me? Humans would have been scared or would have called their authorities, but you just decided to be kind." Jake thought about it for a moment. "I guess because you seemed like you needed help, and I could provide it. Isn't that what anyone would do?" "Not on my world," Zara said softly. "There, you only help people if you're ordered to, or if it benefits you somehow. The idea of helping a stranger just because it's the right thing to do, ... That's not something I've ever experienced before." As the night went on, Jake found himself looking forward to Zara's questions and stories. She told him about her homeworld with its crystal cities in perfect order, but also about how lonely it felt to live somewhere that discouraged personal connections. In return, Jake told her about his life, about the radio station, about the small desert town where he'd grown up. "So you know what's funny?" Jake said as they packed up the tools for the night. "I've lived in the same area my whole life, and I thought it was boring. But hearing you talk about it makes me see it differently." "That's because you're seeing it through my eyes now," Zara said. "And to me, everything here is wonderful." As Jake prepared to head back to the radio station, Zara caught his arm gently. "Jake," she said, "thank you. It's not just for helping with the ship, but for treating me like a person. Like a friend." "That's what you are," Jake said simply. "A friend." The smile on Zara's face was so bright it could have lit up the whole desert. The third night Jake visited Zara. He brought something special in his backpack. He'd been thinking all day about her reaction to that simple sandwich, and he wanted to see what she'd think of chocolate. He also grabbed his old portable radio, and a few other things that might interest someone who'd never experienced human culture. When he arrived at the crash site, Zara was sitting cross-legged next to her ship, but she wasn't working on repairs. Instead, she was just looking up at the stars with the most peaceful expression Jake had ever seen. "You look happy," Jake said, sitting down beside her. "I am happy," Zara replied, not taking her eyes off the sky. "Do you know that on my world? We're so busy with our assigned tasks that no one ever just sits and looks at the stars. Even though we travel between them all the time, we never actually appreciate how beautiful they are." Jake looked up at the desert sky, seeing it through Zara's eyes. He'd grown up under these same stars, but he'd never really paid attention to how amazing they were. "I brought you something," he said, pulling out a chocolate bar from his bag. Zara's attention immediately shifted to the wrapped bar in his hands. "What is it?" "Chocolate. It's like concentrated happiness in food form." Jake unwrapped it and broke off a piece, handing it to her. Zara took a small bite, and Jake watched her face change completely. Eyes went wide, then she closed them, and made a sound that was almost like singing. When she opened her eyes again, she was smiling so big that Jake couldn't help but laugh. "This is incredible," she said, taking another tiny bite like she wanted to make it last forever. "How do humans ever get anything done when you have food like this?" "We've built up a tolerance," Jake joked. "But wait, there's more." He pulled out the portable radio and turned it on, finding a station that was playing soft music. The moment the melody started, Zara went completely still. She tilted her head like she was listening to something magical. "What is that?" she whispered. "This is just a simple song, nothing fancy." Zara stood up and moved closer to the radio, her whole body swaying slightly with the rhythm. "On my world, we have sounds for communication and instruction, but nothing like this. It's nothing that makes you feel things inside." Jake watched as Zara discovered music for the first time. She asked him to explain how different instruments worked, why some songs were fast and others slow, and how humans could create something so beautiful just for the joy of it. When a funny song came on, Jake tried to explain humor to her. So humans make sounds just to make other humans happy? Zara asked. Sometimes we call it laughter. It's what happens when something surprises us in a good way, or when we hear something. Clever. Jake told her a simple joke, and even through the translation device, Zara seemed to understand the concept. When she laughed for the first time, it was the most beautiful sound Jake had ever heard. It was like wind chimes mixed with music, light and joyful and completely genuine. I want to learn more jokes, Zara said, still giggling. This laughter. Feeling is wonderful. Over the next few hours, Jake introduced Zara to more human experiences. He showed her photos on his phone, explained how humans captured moments in time to remember them later. He taught her simple games, showed her how to skip stones in a small pond nearby, and even tried to explain the concept of dancing. Humans move their bodies just for fun? Zara asked, watching Jake demonstrate some basic dance moves. Sometimes, when the music makes us feel good, we want to move with it. Zara tried dancing, and even though she moved differently than humans, there was something graceful and natural about the way she swayed and stepped. She laughed when she stumbled, and Jake realized he'd never met anyone who found so much joy in simply trying new things. You know what amazes me most about humans? Zara said as they sat back down to rest. You do things just because they make you happy. It's not because someone told you to, not because it's your job, just because it feels good. Dancing, music, jokes, even this chocolate, none of it serves a practical purpose, but it makes life better. Jake had never thought about it that way. Don't your people do anything just for fun? No, Zara said, and there was sadness in her voice. Everything has a purpose, a function. Recreation is considered wasteful. We're supposed to find satisfaction in completing our assigned tasks efficiently. That sounds really lonely. It is, Zara admitted. I never realized how lonely until I experienced this. She gestured around them, at the simple scene of two friends sharing snacks and music under the stars. As the night went on, Jake brought out one more surprise. A small cactus plant he'd found near the radio station.
Ow.
This is a living thing that doesn't serve any practical purpose for humans, he explained. But some people keep them just because they're interesting to look at. Zara cradled the small cactus like it was made of gold. It's beautiful, she said. Could I keep it? Of course. It's yours. Jake watched as Zara found the perfect spot for her cactus near her ship, carefully arranging some stones around it to protect it. The care she showed for such a simple plant made Jake realize just how different her world must be from his. Zara said as he prepared to leave that night, I need to tell you something. My ship is almost completely repaired now. Probably leave whenever I want to. Jake felt his heart sink a little. But you're not leaving yet. No, Zara said, looking at her cactus, then at the radio still playing softly, then at Jake. I'm not ready to give up dancing and chocolate and laughter. I'm not ready to go back to a world where no one cares about beautiful, useless things. Then don't go back yet, Jake said. Stay as long as you want. Zara's smile could have powered the entire radio station. Really? Really? Besides, I'm having fun too. You're teaching me to see my own world in a completely new way. As Jake walked back through the desert that night, he realized that Zara wasn't the only one who had been missing something. He'd been living his whole life surrounded by music and chocolate and dancing and friendship, but he'd forgotten to really appreciate any of it. Having an alien friend was showing him just how amazing ordinary human life could be. 3 weeks had passed since Jake first found Zara, and their nightly meetings had become the highlight of both their days. Jake would finish his shift at the radio station and head straight to the crash site, always bringing something new to share with his alien friend. Tonight was different, though. When he arrived, Zara wasn't her usual cheerful self. She was sitting next to her ship, staring at a small device in her hands that was blinking with soft blue lights. Her cactus had grown a tiny new bloom, but she wasn't even looking at it. She saw Jake approaching. She quickly put the device away, but not before he noticed her troubled expression. What's wrong? Jake asked, settling down beside her with his usual bag of treats and surprises. Nothing's wrong, Zara said, but her voice lacked its usual excitement. I was just thinking. Jake had learned to read Zara's moods over the past few weeks. Something was definitely bothering her. Come on, we're friends. You can tell me anything. Zara was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out the blinking device again. This is a communication unit. My people have been trying to contact me. For the past week, they want a status report on my mission. Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. What have you been telling them? I'm still conducting observations and that my ship needs more repairs, Zara admitted. But Jake, that's not entirely true anymore. My ship has been ready to fly for almost a week now. Jake looked at the sleek alien vessel. It certainly looked fixed to him. All the cracks had been sealed, and the scattered parts had been put back where they belonged. So why haven't you left? 'Cause I don't want to, Zara said. And her voice was so sad it made Jake's heart hurt. I've never been this happy in my entire life. Every night with you has been like discovering a new world. The chocolate, the music, the dancing, the jokes, even just talking about nothing important at all. On my world, Jake, we don't have any of that. Jake had suspected this day would come, but he'd been hoping it wouldn't be so soon. What happens? If you don't go back, they'll send someone to look for me eventually. And when they find me, they'll want to know why I stayed. Unauthorized, extended contact with other species is considered a serious violation of our laws. Zara picked up a small stone and threw it into the darkness. They might even decide that Earth is too dangerous if they think I've been compromised. Compromised? Changed by contact with humans, made unreliable. Zara looked at Jake with those large, shining eyes. And they'd be right. I have been changed. I can't imagine going back to a life where I'm not allowed to laugh or ask questions or care about beautiful, useless things. Jake tried to think of a solution, but every idea seemed impossible. What if you just didn't go back? What if you stayed here on Earth? I've thought about that, Zara said. But where would I live? How would I hide? Your governments would eventually find out about me, and that could cause problems between our worlds that I don't want to be responsible for. They sat in silence for a while, both of them thinking about the impossible situation. Jake had grown. So used to having Zara in his life that the thought of her leaving felt like losing a piece of himself. But more than that, he hated the idea of his friend going back to a world that would make her miserable. There's something else, Zara said quietly. Something I haven't told you about my mission here. Jake looked at her, waiting for her to continue. Wasn't just supposed to observe Earth from a distance. I was supposed to send detailed reports about human behavior back to my superiors. They wanted to understand how human society works, especially how you make decisions and form relationships. And have you been doing that? Zara nodded, but not in the way they expected. Instead of writing dry scientific reports about human behavior patterns, I've been telling them about friendship, about kindness, about how humans help each other, not because they have to, but because they want to, about how you create beautiful things just for the joy of creating them. Jake wasn't sure if he should be worried or impressed. How are they taking that? That's the interesting part, Zara said. And for the first time that evening, she smiled a little. Some of them are very interested. It turns out I'm not the only one on my world who questions the way we live. There's a whole group of people who think maybe we could learn something from other species about how to be happier. Really? Really? But they have to be careful. Speaking out against the established order is risky. That's why they're communicating through me instead of making official contact. Zara pulled out the communication device again. They've been asking me to send more detailed reports about human emotional connections and creative expression. Felt a spark of hope. So maybe your extended stay here isn't as big a problem as you thought? Maybe, Zara said, but she still looked worried. The problem is that the progressive group isn't in charge. The traditional leadership still expects me to return soon with standard observational data. If I stay much longer, they'll start asking questions I can't answer. What kind of questions? Like why a simple repair job is taking so long. Like why my reports focus so much on friendship and happiness instead of military capabilities and weaknesses. Like why I sound different in my communications than I did before I came to Earth. Jake realized that Zara's situation was more complicated than he'd understood. You do sound different, more ... alive.
Oh.
That's exactly the problem, Zara said. My world, showing too much emotion or personality, is seen as a flaw. But I can't help it anymore, Jake. I've learned what it feels like to be truly happy, and I can't pretend to be the emotionless observer they sent here. As the night wore on, they tried to think of solutions. Could Zara fake a more serious malfunction to buy more time? Could she somehow convince her superiors that her mission required a longer stay? Could the progressive group she'd been communicating with help her? You know what the worst part is? Zara said as dawn started to lighten the eastern sky. What? Even if I do have to go back, I'll never regret coming here. These weeks with you have been the best time of my life. You've shown me what it means to have a real friend, and that's something I'll carry with me forever, no matter what happens. Jake felt tears in his eyes. You've given me something too, you know. You've made me see how amazing ordinary life can be. I'll never look at chocolate or music or even a simple sunset the same way again. They hugged goodbye that morning, both of them knowing that their next meeting might be their last. As Jake walked back to the radio station, he couldn't shake the feeling that there had to be a way to help his friend. There had to be something they could do to give Zara the happiness she'd found on Earth, without destroying the peace between their worlds. But for the life of him, Jake couldn't figure out what that something might be. Jake couldn't concentrate on his work the next day. Every time he tried to focus on the radio equipment, his mind wandered back to Zara and the sadness in her voice when she talked about leaving. There had to be something he could do to help her, but what? That evening, when he arrived at the crash site, he found Zara in deep conversation with someone through her communication device. She was speaking in her own language, which sounded like a mixture of musical tones and whistles. When she saw Jake, she held up one finger to ask him to wait. After a few more minutes of conversation, Zara put the device away and turned to Jake. With an expression he couldn't quite read, she looked nervous, but also excited. Jake, she said, something amazing has happened. What is it? Remember I told you about the progressive group on my world, the ones who have been interested in my reports about human friendship and emotions? Jake nodded, sitting down beside her. Well, they've been sharing my reports with others, and it's caused quite a stir. Apparently there are more people on my world who are unhappy with our emotionless society than anyone realized. My descriptions of laughter and kindness and creative expression have sparked a movement. A movement. People are starting to question why we live the way we do, why we suppress emotions and discourage personal connections. Some of the younger generation are even trying to create their own versions of human art and music. Jake felt a glimmer of hope. That's incredible. But what does it mean for you? Zara's smile was brighter than Jake had seen it in days. It means that instead of being punished for my extended stay on Earth, I'm being asked to continue my work here, officially. Jake's heart leaped. Really? Progressive movement has gained enough support to influence the leadership. They've convinced the council that understanding human emotional intelligence could be valuable for our species' development. I've been assigned as the first official cultural exchange representative between our worlds. Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. So you can stay? Not only can I stay, but I'm supposed to stay. My job now is to continue learning about human culture and emotions, and to slowly introduce some of these concepts to my own people. Zara picked up her cactus, which had grown another small bloom. I get to keep learning about beautiful, useless things, and it's actually considered important work. Jake felt like laughing and crying at the same time. That's the best news I've heard in my entire life. There's more, Zara said. My people want to establish a small research station here, hidden from your general population but known to your government leaders. We're going to start the first real cultural exchange between our species, and you'll be in charge of it. I'll be the primary liaison. Yes. Jake, I get to spend my life doing what I love most, learning about friendship and happiness and all the wonderful things that make humans special. Zara paused and looked at him seriously. But only if you're willing to help me. What do you mean I can't do this alone? I need someone who understands both worlds. Someone who can help me explain human culture to my people and help my people understand humans. I need my best friend. Wait. Jake felt tears welling up in his eyes. Are you asking me to be part of this? I'm asking you to be my partner in the most important work either of our species has ever undertaken. We get to build a bridge between two worlds, Jake. We get to show both our peoples that friendship and understanding can cross any distance, even the distance between stars. Jake looked around at the desert where their friendship had begun. Just a few weeks ago, he'd been a lonely radio technician who thought his life was boring and meaningless. Now he was being asked to help change the relationship between two worlds. Yes, he said without hesitation. Absolutely yes. Zara's laugh was like music in the desert air. She hugged Jake tightly, and he realized that this alien being had become more than just a friend. She was like family to him. Over the next few days, everything changed rapidly. Government officials arrived, though Jake never quite understood how they'd been contacted or what agreements had been reached. A small, hidden facility was built near the radio station, designed to look like just another communications outpost to anyone who might notice it. Zara's people sent a small ship with supplies and a few other cultural researchers, though none of them were quite as enthusiastic about human culture as Zara was. Jake found himself in the surreal position of being Earth's first official alien cultural consultant. His job was to help the visiting researchers understand human emotions,
social
structures, and creative expression. But mostly, he got to spend his days with Zara, exploring every aspect of human culture together. They watched movies and tried to explain to the other researchers why humans enjoyed fictional stories. They attended a concert in the nearby town, where Zara's people were amazed by the way music could make a crowd of strangers all feel the same emotions at the same time. They visited art museums, restaurants, and even a comedy show. "You know what I've learned?" Zara said one evening as they sat outside the new research facility, watching the sunset paint the desert sky in brilliant colors. "What's that?"
happiness.
"Isn't something you achieve or accomplish. It's something you share. All the wonderful things I've discovered about human culture, the laughter, the music, the friendship, none of it would have meant anything if I'd experienced it alone." Jake smiled, thinking about how much his own life had changed. "I've learned something too. I spent my whole life thinking I was just an ordinary person living an ordinary life, but sharing it with you made me realize that there's no such thing as ordinary. Every day is amazing if you have someone to share it with." As the stars came out above them, Jake reflected on the incredible journey that had started with a strange radio signal just a few weeks ago. He'd set out to help a stranded alien and ended up helping to build a bridge between worlds. But more importantly, he'd gained a friendship that had changed everything he thought he knew about life and happiness. Zara's cactus, now thriving in a place of honor next to the research facility, had grown several new blooms. Like their friendship, it was proof that the most beautiful things could grow in the most unexpected places, given just a little care and attention, and Jake knew that. This was just the beginning of their adventures together.